The room smelled of ozone and hot metal. It wasn't Earth. No, this was something far stranger. Lieutenant Jace Weller blinked through the haze and tried to stand, but his arms were bound in a glowing cord that pulsed every time he moved too fast. He was the last one left after the ambush. His squad had been pulled into an alien vessel while on patrol near the far asteroid colonies. The others were gone. Dead or worse. Jace wasn't sure which. He only knew he was still breathing and strapped to a cold slab while lights flickered. Above, there was movement in the corner. Soft, deliberate, elegant. She stepped into the room, her silver skin shining under the sterile light. Her hair flowed like woven glass, and her eyes were a deep violet, watchful and filled with confidence. She wasn't just any alien, she was royalty. Commander Velshana of the Cathari, the species that recently declared humans as lower intelligence. Decorative fauna. "You are awake," she said, her voice silky and calm. "Good. That means you can understand the terms of your new existence." Jay stared at her, jaw tight. She reached to a nearby table and picked up what looked like a collar. It shimmered with embedded tech. One twitch from her, and it could crush his spine or maybe read his thoughts. He couldn't be sure. "You humans are curious, obedient when broken. I chose you from the wreckage. You will serve me," she said, smiling as if it were a gift. He didn't respond. Silence seemed safer. She circled him slowly, like a predator amused by its prey. "You'll walk beside me, speak when spoken to, and keep your eyes down," she continued. "Disobedience will result in correction." He expected pain, but what he felt instead was confusion. She wasn't cruel, not yet. She was entertained. As if she thought this was some grand game, the ship jolted suddenly. Alarms echoed in the background. Something wasn't right. She looked up toward the sound, annoyed. "Ignore that," she said. "Your species resists surrender." "Pointless," Jay smiled slightly. "That was humanity's core, resistance. Even if it cost everything." She saw the smile and stepped closer. "Why are you smiling, pet?" she asked. "I was just wondering how long this little fantasy of yours will last," he said calmly. The words hung in the air. She narrowed her eyes. "You misunderstand. You are not here to fantasize. You are here to please." The collar hovered in her hand. She placed it gently around his neck, the device snapping shut with a hiss. It didn't hurt. It hummed softly, linking with his vitals. It was a leash, a symbol of dominance. But in that moment, something else happened. The collar flickered once, then twice. Her smile faltered. She tapped on her bracelet, eyes narrowing. The data stream wasn't syncing. His biology wasn't submitting. Jace tilted his head. "Problem?" She didn't answer. For the first time, doubt entered her perfect face. She left the room quickly, locking it behind her. The walls pulsed blue. Jace leaned back on the slab, breathing slower now. He wasn't broken. He wasn't going to be. And somewhere deep in the ship, the resistance frequency he swallowed before capture was beginning to pulse. It wasn't just a tracker. It was a key that would unlock more than his restraints. A key that might trigger the ship's eye. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a failsafe. Earth didn't send him here to die. He volunteered for the front line because he had nothing left to lose. But now he had one goal: turn this humiliation into victory. When she returned, she looked calm. But her hands stayed behind her back. She was hiding something. A knife maybe, or a scanner. Her smile returned, but it wasn't as playful. It was forced. "Something about you confuses the tech," she said. "I will investigate it further. You may amuse me yet." Jace met her eyes. He didn't flinch. "Maybe your system isn't ready for something it can't tame." She blinked once. For the first time, she looked unsure. Not threatened, just puzzled. "We will see." Either way, you belong to me now. The door hissed shut again, but she paused in the threshold. Her head turned slightly, voice cool and low. Try not to bite. I dislike broken pets. He waited a few seconds, then whispered to the room, knowing someone or something was listening. Good, because I'm not a pet. I'm the one who teaches the handler how to kneel. Outside, the ship slipped deeper into Cathari space. But inside, something far more dangerous was unfolding. A human wasn't kneeling to power. He was baiting it to fall. Jace sat quietly on the edge of the glowing floor, staring at the wall that flickered every 30 seconds. He had counted it. 37 times. It wasn't boredom. It was patience. He had learned during survival training that silence could be a weapon. Let them think you were broken. Let them think you accepted defeat. The moment you screamed or lashed out, they filed you as a problem. But silence? Silence made them curious. Across the room, a floating orb followed his movements. It was some kind of monitor, maybe even a sentry. He waved to it. It didn't respond. That was fine. He didn't need it to. The door opened with a hiss, and Velshana entered again. Her steps were softer this time. She wasn't trying to intimidate him. Now she was observing. Calculating. I've reviewed your scan, she said, tapping on her wristband. Your mind resists imprinting. That makes you interesting. Jace didn't answer. She stepped closer. Do you have any idea what your species is worth in the markets of the Outer Rim? She asked, voice smooth. You're not soldiers. To them, you're novelties. Pets with teeth. He slowly looked up at her. And what does that make you? A collector? She smirked, a commander. With taste. Her fingers reached for his collar again. She didn't adjust it. She simply traced it like it was hers. Jace held still. He knew every touch was a test. Not of pain, but of reaction. You don't tremble. You don't panic. Most humans cry by now, she said, studying him. I wonder what it would take to break you. You should wonder what happens if you fail. The smile dropped from her lips. For a full second, she stared at him, no longer amused. Her hand hovered above a thin control device strapped to her hip. But she didn't press it. Instead, she turned and gestured toward the orb. The floor beneath Jace shifted, and he fell forward into a kneeling position. Not by choice. The collar pulled him. She leaned down, whispering beside his ear. This can be easy. I can make you comfortable. Give you food, warmth, even company. All I ask is obedience. He gritted his teeth but said nothing. She walked out again, satisfied with the silence. The collar released him a moment later. He stood up slowly, blood pounding in his ears. The orb followed again. This time, it made a soft chime. A signal. His signal. The resistance implant behind his ear was sinking. Finally, the pulse had reached the satellite node, disguised inside the collar. It was working. He wasn't alone. Jace knelt near the wall and pressed his hand to a small seam. It looked like nothing, but his suit's nanofibers had left a trace when he first touched it. A single press, and a faint blue light blinked once. Message sent. The AI inside the ship was older than he expected. Not sentient, but it was layered, built for discipline, order, control. If he could inject a human override, even temporarily, he might gain access to the ship's internal layout. He sat back down and focused on his breathing. Each second mattered. Each blink could trigger the change, but he had to stay still. If Velshana noticed anything unusual, she might shut down. The entire deck. The door opened again. This time she wasn't alone. 2 more Cathari walked in, taller, bulkier, not royalty. Soldiers, rise, she ordered. Jace stood. His legs were stiff, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. She wanted to show him something. Or test him again. The guards stepped forward and held out a tray. On it were clothes. Not human. Not military. silk-like robes with a collar design embroidered in gold. They were elegant, but clearly symbolic. You will wear these. Tonight you join my court as my formal servant. That means eyes will be on you, she said. He took the robes. And if I refuse? She gestured toward one of the guards. Without warning, the alien raised a baton and cracked it against the floor. Sparks flew. Jace didn't flinch. Velshana nodded, amused. You'll wear them. Because resistance is only attractive to a point. Jace looked at her, then at the robes. He turned slowly, walked behind the divider, and changed. The cloth was light, flexible, no hidden weapons, no wires. It was designed to be soft, beautiful, and weak. When he stepped out, she clapped once. Perfect. Now kneel. He lowered himself without resistance, not because she commanded it, but because now he knew exactly how her rituals worked. Every command had a pattern. Every activation in the collar was timed. The control system had a rhythm. She approached and placed her hand gently on his head. My little pet, she said softly. Tomorrow the galaxy will see you at my side. And they will know I have tamed a Terran. He remained still. But inside he smiled. Because tonight, the galaxy would see something else. The beginning of her fall. She turned away, and he rose once she left. He looked down at the golden collar around his neck. It sparkled under the alien lights. But it wasn't a symbol of defeat. It was a beacon. A countdown. Soon it would pulse. Red, and when it did, she wouldn't be the one giving orders anymore. Jace touched the side of the collar. The surface warmed. A message flashed across his vision in faint human script. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for extraction protocol. He looked toward the sealed door and whispered one word with quiet certainty. Soon. The grand hall of the Cathari vessel was nothing short of a floating palace. Golden banners shimmered from the ceiling. Crystalline chandeliers hovered above the floor, held in place by unseen grav fields. It was beauty built to impress, especially their allies and rivals. Velshana stood proudly near her throne. Her silver dress caught the light like starlight. Her guards lined the walls in full armor. And behind her, knelt quietly, was the human. Jace remained calm. He had rehearsed this position in his mind. Knees steady, head bowed. Eyes just low enough to seem submissive. But his mind was awake, alert, calculating. A dozen alien dignitaries entered, some tall and reptilian. Others soft-skinned with floating fins along their backs. They were the elite guests of the Cathari. Some glanced at Jace with amusement. Others with pity, one or two with hunger. Velshana raised her hand to silence them. Esteemed delegates, today I present my newest court-bound servant, a human, fully compliant. Symbol of our growing influence on Terran outliers. There was applause. Thin, forced. The reptilian one barked something in his native tongue. It translated to, taming a savage does not make you wise. It makes you foolish. Velshana's smile did not falter. Then watch and judge for yourselves, she snapped her fingers. A servant rolled in a polished silver table holding a bowl of strange fruit and glowing insects. She gestured to Jace. Serve. Jace rose slowly. He took the tray and walked toward the guests. His movements were deliberate, balanced. He served each alien calmly, politely, with the grace of a well-trained court servant. But each step he took placed a microbeacon, invisible to the eye, hidden beneath his borrowed robes. The tray itself carried a frequency generator that disrupted short-range surveillance. His mission had begun. Velshana watched him. Her expression unreadable. Something about his precision unsettled her. Not because he disobeyed, but because he didn't. He obeyed too well. Jace knelt again once the task was finished. His breathing remained steady. He focused on the hum beneath the floor. It had changed, slightly, a signal pulse. The ice sink was progressing. The reptilian delegate spoke again. He moves too smoothly for one recently enslaved, Velshana's. Eyes narrowed. Humans learn quickly. Their survival instincts are useful. In time, they even begin to enjoy their obedience. Jace kept his face neutral. But inside, he logged every word. These aliens didn't understand humans at all. They thought comfort meant loyalty. They thought silence meant surrender. Another guest, thin and violet-skinned, leaned forward. "Does he speak?" Velshana motioned lazily. "Speak, pet." "Tell them your name." Jace raised his head just enough. "Jace, Earthborn, Terran Infantry Division 12. The hall grew silent for a second. His voice was clear. Strong, not broken, not trained. Velshana blinked. The delegates looked at her. One laughed. Another snorted. "He does not sound broken," one said. "He sounds like he still fights." Velshana stepped forward. "He knows his place. He will not raise his voice again unless commanded." Jace returned to silence. That was enough. One sentence, just one. It planted doubt. The ceremony ended within the hour. The delegates filed out slowly, some still laughing, some whispering. Velshana said nothing as she returned to her private chamber. But her pace was stiff. Her mind was loud. Back in the holding room, Jace sat on the floor. The collar around his neck pulsed gently. The second frequency had activated. A confirmation code flashed in the back of his eye. The nanofiber in his bloodstream was online. He pressed his thumb against the floor again. The light blinked twice. That meant partial override success. One more code sequence and he would control the hallway doors. Escape wasn't the goal, yet control was. The orb re-entered. It scanned him silently, then hovered in place. It was waiting, maybe watching. Jace looked at it and spoke quietly. Log entry, Day 5, Objective, Destabilize Command. Begin Phase 2. The orb didn't react, but the red light behind it. I blinked once. Signal received. Velshana entered an hour later. Alone this time. Her dress was gone. She wore combat armor. Not ceremonial, real, functional. She walked up to him and stared. "You embarrassed me." Jace didn't move. "I spoke when told to, exactly as ordered. That tone. That presence. You humiliated me in front of leaders who question our strength. You are not a trophy. You are a threat." She raised a small blade. It gleamed with plasma heat, not for killing. For reminding. Jace didn't flinch, then strike. But remember, what weakness truly is. It's not defiance. It's believing you can control something that refuses to break. Her hand trembled for a moment, just a second. Then she lowered the blade. Her breath was sharp. "Unsteady, I should have picked someone dumber. You picked the right one. You just didn't know why." She stared at him longer this time. Not with anger, with confusion, with curiosity. She turned and stormed out, leaving the blade behind. Jace picked it up. Not to use it, but to scan it. Embedded in the handle was a trace frequency, one of her command signatures. If he mirrored that, he could spoof access to her quarters. The plan was building, piece by piece, move by move. She thought she had chosen a pet, but he was building a leash of his own, and soon she would be wearing it. Asterisk. The Cathari ship floated silently through deep space. Inside, the mood had changed. The halls were quieter. Guards were more alert. And Velshana had stopped smiling. She sat alone in her command chamber, watching the security feed. Every angle showed Jace, eating, walking, standing in silence. He was doing nothing suspicious. Yet she could feel something was wrong. Her fingers hovered over the command screen. The eye still showed compliance from the collar. All readings normal, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Humans were not so easily broken. And this one was dangerous. Jace knew she was watching. He always moved with purpose. He never slouched, never looked lost. Every action was controlled, predictable. That was his weapon. The ship's second in command, a tall male named Vorel, entered the chamber. "Commander, there's growing concern among the lower officers," he said. "They think the human is manipulating you." Velshana's eyes flicked toward him. He is caged, watched, monitored at every hour. What could he possibly do? Vorel didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Morale is strange. Officers say he walks like he owns the floor. Some junior guards are mimicking him. There was even a salute given to him yesterday." Velshana stood abruptly. "Enough. He is a display, an ornament. He holds no power." Vorel didn't respond. But he didn't agree either. That silence angered her more than words would have. Meanwhile, in the garden dome of the ship, Jace knelt near a glowing root vine. The plant shimmered under starlight, its energy feeding the ship's biocore. It wasn't a garden for beauty. It was the ship's power source. The orb hovered near him. He spoke in a low voice. "AI core sync, 89%. Control override in 12 hours. The orb blinked red once. Jay stood and dusted off his hands. A group of Cathari technicians walked past. One nodded to him. Not mockingly. With respect. Each day, another officer treated him less like property and more like something else. Not equal, but influential. It wasn't fear, it was gravity. Quiet power. He had learned their customs. He spoke their names with precision. He remembered details. He listened. That unsettled them. He was not supposed to adapt. Velshana summoned him again. This time to the ship's central core. A place no slave should be allowed. It was too sensitive. Too critical. But she wanted to test him. The room pulsed with energy. Core tendrils snaked through crystal channels. The AI processor hovered at the center like a floating brain. She gestured to a console. "You will scan this interface. Tell me what you see." Jace walked forward. The collar's sensors immediately began transmitting, but he was prepared. His implants scrambled the signal. What she saw was fake. He pointed to the main feed. "Your system is running hot. Reactor flow is clean. But the language matrix in your AI is slowly degrading. It's translating poorly." She blinked, then checked her console. He was right. She hadn't noticed it. Her technicians hadn't seen it either. "How did you?" she began. "I read your manuals," he said. She stared at him, then slowly circled around. "You're not just a soldier, are you?" "I'm whoever you need me to be." The answer hit her like a challenge. She didn't know whether to strike him or promote him. That confusion only made her more cautious. Later, she spoke to the AI directly. "Core unit, is the human manipulating ship systems?" The AI responded in its calm voice. "No unauthorized control detected." "Human unit is compliant." She nodded, but her thoughts spiraled. She didn't trust the silence anymore. Not when the walls themselves seemed to lean toward Jace. In his room, Jace pulled apart a food tray. Inside, the utensils were made of adaptive material. He reshaped one into a short cable and slid it into a hidden socket in the wall. A map flashed. Before his eyes, the ship's full interior, power nodes, security points, crew schedules. All of it now his. He uploaded a silent patch into the AI, not to control, to whisper. A message hidden in command syntax. One line at a time, the ship began to shift slightly. Doors delayed by half a second. Lights flickered in symmetrical patterns. Nothing major. Just enough to make the crew uneasy. Velshana noticed the changes. Her hand hovered over the AI interface again. "Are these delays part of protocol?" "Yes, system optimization in progress," the AI replied. She didn't believe it. But there was no proof, no error. Just discomfort. Jace slept that night without chains, not because he was free, but because no one dared shackle him anymore. Even the guards watched from a distance. No one wanted to be the one who triggered him. He had shifted from pet to something far more powerful. A symbol, a mirror. He was becoming a shadow of leadership. And shadows stretch when the light is too rigid. In her private room, Velshana touched her own collar, decorative, royal, untouched. But for the first time, it felt heavy, and she didn't understand why. Whispers traveled faster than orders on the Cathari ship. Rumors moved like sparks across dry leaves. And every whisper had the same name at the center, Jace. It began with the guards. They started checking in with him before their shifts. Then, the engineers began asking his advice. Soon, even medical staff were deferring to his opinions. Velshana noticed it immediately. No one disobeyed her directly, but their eyes held doubt. Their posture shifted. They hesitated before answering. And always, they stole glances at the human. He was still wearing the collar, still obeying every command. But somehow, he no longer looked like a prisoner. He looked like a leader wrapped in silk and silence. In the central mess hall, Jace sat among crew members. Not beside them, not below them, among them. He shared food, asked questions, told simple stories from Earth. They laughed. They listened. None of it was forced. That was the danger. Influence without force is the strongest kind. He never raised his voice, never gave an order. But the room shifted around him like gravity. Velshana burst into the mess hall without warning. The room fell silent. Her eyes locked on Jace. Return to your chamber. Now, he stood calmly. Yes, Commander. He walked away in silence. No resistance, but behind him, no one moved. They all watched her, not in fear. In judgment, she returned to her chambers and paced the room. Her heart pounded. She had ruled ships, broken enemies, commanded fleets. But now her own crew made her feel like an outsider. Her private console beeped. A message from High Command. A request to explain the recent loss in AI efficiency and personnel discipline. The reports didn't say his name, but she knew the cause. She looked into the mirror on her wall. Her own reflection felt like a stranger. Her face was calm, but her chest ached. She wasn't angry. She was confused. How had this happened so fast? In his chamber, Jace sat cross-legged on the floor. The orb hovered above him. Status update, he said softly. The orb blinked. AI core control now 96%. Ship-wide override protocol enabled. Passive crew alignment at 71%. Jace exhaled slowly. Initiate psychological destabilization protocol. Low level. Target. Velshana. The lights in her chamber dimmed by 2%. The room's temperature dropped slightly. Just enough to be felt. Just enough to suggest something was wrong. Her bracelet buzzed. System recalibration in progress, the II said. She didn't believe it. But she said nothing. Doubt had already taken root. The next day, she summoned Jace to her throne room. But the room was empty. No guards, no council. Just her and him. He walked in with quiet confidence. She gestured for him to kneel. He did, but he raised his head. Quickly, I should have destroyed you the moment you spoke, she said. You could have. But you wanted to see what I'd do next. She circled him slowly. Her footsteps echoed like warning shots. You are turning my ship against me. Do you think I don't see it? I think you see it. But you don't know how to stop it. She drew a small weapon from her belt. It wasn't charged, but it hummed with potential. She placed it against his forehead. He didn't flinch. If you strike me now, you'll only prove I was right. That you fear what you can't control. Her hands trembled. Not from weakness, but from frustration. She wasn't used to doubt or helplessness. I gave you a place. I fed you. clothed you. And you repay me with poison. I gave your people something you never did. I gave them purpose, she lowered the weapon slowly. Her eyes burned with rage. And something else, pain. You think you've won? She asked. I haven't done anything. They chose. She turned away, trying to compose herself. But her hands clenched. Her voice was tight. You are still wearing my collar. Jay stood. Slowly, calmly, he reached up and unlatched it with a simple motion. The lock clicked. It fell into his palm. She froze. He held it out toward her. It was never yours. It was mine the moment I accepted it. And now I'm returning it. She stared at the collar, then at his face. Something inside her cracked. Not from hatred, from confusion. From the realization that she had lost something she didn't understand. He turned and walked away. She didn't stop him. Couldn't. The door closed behind him. She remained alone. A commander in a palace with no loyalty. A queen in name only. Outside, the crew whispered again. But now their voices were louder. And their eyes were certain. They didn't serve her anymore. The halls of the ship no longer echoed with orders barked from above. They moved with quiet precision, calm steps, focused eyes. The crew had changed. And at the center of that shift stood a human without chains. Jace walked the command level with no guards at his side. No leash around his neck. Yet every officer he passed gave him a respectful nod. They didn't fear him. They respected him. Velshana watched from the upper level. The sight made her fingers tighten around the railing. It was her ship, her throne, her rule. Yet she was the only one who now walked alone. She summoned Vorel, her second in command. He entered without the usual formalities. Bet alone told her everything. What's happening to my ship? She asked. He didn't look away. Your crew follows strength. And strength has changed shape. I am still commander. You are. But command is not the same as control. She dismissed him with a wave, but the sting of his honesty stayed behind. It clung to her armor like dust that wouldn't wipe away. In the lower sector, Jay stood before a large schematic display. The ship's systems blinked in green, stable, orderly, efficient. He tapped one node and watched the readout shift. The AI obeyed him now. Run diagnostic. Life support, propulsion, weapons, he said. All systems optimal, the AI replied. Core access restricted to authorized signature. Terran, Jace Weller. The ship had accepted him as part of its hierarchy. Not through a code, through influence. It had measured his behavior, his choices, his control. And it had shifted its loyalties accordingly. Velshana finally approached him on the operations deck, alone, without guards, without weapons. This is my ship, she said. And I've never taken that from you, Jace replied. Then what? Have you taken? He turned to her fully. I gave your people clarity, not fear. I gave them structure, not force. They didn't follow me because I ordered them. They followed because they were tired of being told who to fear. She looked around. Officers passed them without stopping. No one saluted her, no one bowed. They nodded at Jace, not as a leader. As something deeper, she stepped closer. You said I could have destroyed you. You were right. I didn't, and now I've lost everything. You haven't lost everything, he said quietly. She frowned. What have I kept? Choice. The word hung in the air like a silent blast. She didn't reply. Couldn't. Her throat tightened. Not from defeat. From realization. Why haven't you removed me? She whispered. Because this ship still needs you. The crew still needs you. But not as a tyrant. She blinked. Then what? As a partner. The suggestion struck her like a weapon. She had ruled through dominance, through beauty, through fear. But never beside anyone. Never with shared power. Do you want the throne? She asked. No. Then what do you want? I want the crew to feel safe. I want the mission to succeed. I want your people to understand humans are not toys. We are not pets. We are not to be broken." Velshana looked down at the polished floor. Her reflection shimmered. And for the first time in her life, she didn't see a queen. She saw a woman standing in the ruins of her pride. Later that evening, she walked into the mess hall. Alone again. But this time, no silence followed. The crew stood and acknowledged her. Not because they feared her. Because Jace had already spoken to them. She walked to Jace, who sat at the far end. She placed something in front of him. The collar, reforged, restyled, but not as a restraint. As a symbol, you wore it first. "But now I do," she said. Jace looked at it, then looked at her. She wore a thin version of it around her own neck. It was decorative, royal, equal. He nodded once. No words were needed. The message was clear. She had stepped down not as a surrender, but as an understanding. Her rule hadn't ended. It had evolved, and so had she. The Cathari flagship drifted silently through neutral space. But inside, it no longer felt like a war machine. It felt like something reborn. Walls that once echoed with cold commands now hummed with shared purpose. Jace stood at the central command table beside Velshana. Her expression was calmer now. Not weak, not broken, just clear. The same crew who once feared her now listened to her without tension. They listened to him too. The ship's AI responded to both their voices. Dual command recognized. 2 signatures, 1 purpose. This was no longer a hierarchy of domination. It was a bridge between species. Yet peace was fragile. A transmission came through that morning. A Cathari warlord named Traskin, old blood. Brutal ways. He had heard rumors of the Terran pet who walked without chains. He demanded answers. The message was short. If the commander kneels beside a human, then she kneels no longer as Cathari. Surrender her ship or face cleansing. Velshana crushed. The message device in her palm. Sparks burst from her fingers. He dares to call this weakness. He dares because he fears what he doesn't understand, Jace said. He is coming here. I know him, he won't wait. He'll bring a fleet. Then we show him what strength really looks like. The crew gathered in the war chamber. Dozens of species stood together. Some once loyal only by fear, now bonded by respect. Velshana addressed them first. I led this ship with fire, it gave us power. But fire alone consumes everything. What I build now will not burn. It will grow, and you all will decide its shape. No one cheered. But every head nodded. They were ready. Jay stepped forward. Let them come. Let them see a human not kneeling. Let them see a queen not lashing. Let them see unity, not chains. Traskin arrived with 4 destroyers. His flagship was lined with bone and rusted steel. It hovered like a scar across the stars. The message was clear. Submission or death. The Cathari flagship did not retreat. It did not hide. Instead, it opened full combs. Jace and Velshana appeared on every screen in Traskin's fleet, side by side. Equal. I expected to see a broken slave, Traskin snarled. Instead, I see a male leading my own bloodline. You see a male standing where strength chose to evolve. Jace replied. Velshana's voice followed. You rule through fear. I ruled through fire. But now I lead through vision. You are not here to rescue anyone. You are here to test your fading control. Traskin roared, his weapons charged. Then burn with your pet. But the moment his fleet launched weapons, the Cathari ship responded faster. Not with missiles, with precision. The AI, fully reprogrammed, bypassed Traskin's primitive systems. Shields collapsed. Engines stalled. Weapon banks silenced mid-charge. Traskin's ship drifted powerless. And then, from behind the stars, 5 more vessels arrived. Not Cathari, not Terran. Independent factions. All as Jace had quietly contacted over the last cycle. They had come to watch. And now they had chosen sides. Velshana spoke again. You are no longer a commander, Traskin. You are a warning. Let the galaxy see what happens to power when it fails to listen. Traskin vanished from the screen. His fleet did not fire. Again, one by one, his ships turned and left. No battle. No glory. Only silence. Inside the ship, the crew finally exhaled. Jace walked to the observation window. Stars blinked beyond the glass. Velshana joined him. Her collar now matched his. A symbol of choice. Of shared rule. We didn't destroy him, she said. We didn't have to, Jace replied. He'll return. Maybe not him. But others like him. Then we'll stand together again. She looked at him. Her violet eyes softer now. You were supposed to be mine. I was supposed to be no one. They didn't touch. They didn't bow. They just stood there, watching the stars. Side by side. Two rulers of something new, not empire, not rebellion, but balance. He turned to her and smiled. So what now? She answered with the first genuine laugh she had ever given. Now we see how far peace can travel with two collars and no leash. And the ship sailed forward, not as a prison, not as a palace, but as a promise.